Okay. Hey guys, my name is Maya. I am an aspiring author, and I'm here with Brittany Lewis. And yeah, she's an author, and I just wanted to let her introduce herself.
Yay! I'm Brittany. My name is Britney S. Lewis, and I am the young adult author of The Undead Truth of Us, coming out with Disney summer 2022. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course, I'm so happy that you are available. So yeah, I'm just gonna get started with our questions. Is that okay?
That's perfect.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, so first off, what got you first interested in writing? Were you a fan fiction person, or did you just start with original stories?
I wish I was in fan fiction. I know people like dog on fan fiction sometimes, but when I hear their stories, it sounds so cool because I probably would have been doing that. But no, I started writing seriously when I was 16. And the reason why I started writing was literally because I had finished the Twilight series.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read. Yeah. I was like, well, I just finished the Twilight series. My where the school that I attended, the high school I attended, we had a very small library and we didn't have a lot of books. And so I remember thinking like, man, I'm never going to be able to check anything else out in the library after reading the series. There's nothing else there for me. And I couldn't go to my local library because I had a lot of fines. And so I was like, okay. I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to pay this off. So I'm going to just write my own stories. So I literally was like, well, Brittany, if you know how to read a book, you can learn how to write a book. So I just started writing one. And it was a young adult thriller, and it was based in Kansas City, so my hometown. And the only reason I wrote it was because I loved the mystery aspect of finding out who Edward was in the first book of Twilight. And I wanted to do that, but with characters that looked like me.
That's amazing. I love that. And yeah, I love that you bring up like the concept of characters that, you know, would love you personally, because growing up, like there weren't a lot of yeah, Black women represented in a romantic way in fiction or just in general.
Yeah.
So when was like the first time that you ever felt like you really saw yourself or you felt inspired by someone else's representation that you saw?
Yeah. So later, I guess later in my life, so my early 20s, it wasn't until after I graduated college when I read Nicola Jung's Everything, Everything, which is my favorite book, hands down. I could reread that book backwards and forwards every single day. But that was the first time. And it's funny because I had seen the movie first. And I was like, oh, this is a book. I should read this book. And then I read the book and I loved the book. And that was the first time I saw myself ever in a story. And it's funny because The Hate U Give had already come out before Everything, Everything. And The Hate U Give, I remember seeing that was like this really big book. Angie Thomas was blowing up. It was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be a movie too. And then I was too anxious to read it because I wasn't ready to like see, you know, our childhood, like a childhood that was similar to mine, like in a book. And so I read Everything, Everything, and I love that book. My favorite book. So that was the first time I saw myself in a story.
That's amazing. I absolutely love Everything, Everything. I was super excited about it. Like I literally read the book like in a day right before I watched the movie with my mom. And we had
oh my gosh.
Time. Yeah. I actually watched both of her movies with my mom. Like we also watched The Sun Is Also a Star together.
You did?
Oh my
gosh. I haven't seen that one. I have to see it.
You haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it. I'm weird because like I just want to finish the book first, and I feel like I'm gonna miss out now. If I don't finish the book, I won't be able to see what the movie didn't like put in there. So yeah.
But, yeah, honestly, like that it really was a game changer because it was the first story that you really saw in like movie media that wasn't focused on a Black girl's trauma as a
Yes.
main character, especially in YA. That was unheard of.
I know, it was a big deal. And when I think about it too, like growing up, I do remember seeing there was a series of books, and I cannot remember who the author is, and I'll have to like try to go find it. But my sister would have these books, and it was like Black characters on it. But I remember thinking the topic, I don't know if it was the topic of the book or what the stories were. They were all contemporary. I think they were probably published in like the 90s or something. Mm-hmm. And I saw them and I thought they were cool, but I was like, I don't know if I want to read that because I really wanted something with more magic. We just didn't have that yet.
Yeah. And it's like not even like magic. It's like that, just like regular, you know, just kind of spark romance magic.
Yeah.
Like these like white romance stories.
Yes.
But like not really in Black ones. Like I was a big Sarah Dessen reader when I was a kid. Did you read Sarah Dessen?
I haven't read any Sarah Dessen. I'm so embarrassed.
No, that's totally okay. But like I was obsessed, but it was kind of like this weird experience where like I remember my friend like won a ticket to see her on Twitter at like a library when I was a senior in high school. And I was like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. Like I literally wrote a book report about her in high school.
What?
About her.
That's amazing.
Because it was like my favorite book. Her The Truth About Forever is just very, very cute to me. I really like it a lot. So I wrote a book report about her. I got an A+, and then I was telling her about it when I saw her when I was a senior. And then literally 2 years ago, I met her again at another book signing. And it was cool seeing like the side by side of our two pictures of like me like 10 years before that and her.
Uh-huh.
But
that's so sweet. What a moment. That's amazing.
It was really nice. Yeah. And it's like those type of like, I don't know, like characters that have like, and like stories where you see like a relationship, like a romantic relationship, where it's kind of like a magical thing that happens between these two people. Like, and her stories, they were kind of gritty. Like the girls, like they didn't have a ton of spice, but they did have some issues. But they always got their cute endings. So that was what I really liked. And
Augie's back here sneezing. Okay, we're good. She's excited that you're here, so. But that's amazing, the Sarah Dessen. Like, I have to write down that book that you mentioned because I've heard her, like, she's a staple name in young adult fiction. And I remember listening to one of her stories on a podcast. So I need to, like, just dive into this world to see what story she's been telling everyone.
Well, she has that movie. You know that movie with Mandy Moore and I think it was like early 2000s called How to Deal? Do you remember that?
Maybe I'm gonna like Google
it's like really random. Like it's a small movie of hers, but like it was based on 2 Sarah Dessen books.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I read like the tie-in version of the 2 books or something, and that's how I first started reading her stuff.
I did see this movie. I liked Mandy Moore growing up because I liked her personality on screen. So that's kind of perfect. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's weirdly based on 2 random books of hers. And I heard last year she has like a Netflix deal. She has like some movies coming out soon. So I hope that is coming soon because I'm hyped, but we'll see. But anyway, sorry. This is a sidetrack because I just like talking about Sarah Dessen, but I want to talk about something else you mentioned in relation to The Hate U Give. And how you weren't really ready to read that and you wanted to see something that was more focused on like Black joy for young women. I definitely had that same experience. It was kind of like I really, really value Andy's work and it's incredible. Like I don't know, it's just like just to think of like how long she's been on like the New York Times bestseller list and like every week, and it's like when I see that it just inspires me because I'm just like kids are reading her book year after year, and I'm so glad. Like kids who need to read that book and need to have something happen within them to have some more perspective and empathy, I think is really important. So that's why I'm just like a huge fan. Like I wasn't able to read her whole book, but I did watch the movie. I like went to the premiere and like I actually got to see like Amanda Stenberg there. It was pretty cool. It was at the Toronto International Film Festival. Yeah.
That's, I have no words. That's amazing.
It was cool. And like, yes, Angie, I saw Angie there briefly. It was crazy. But honestly, like, I really appreciate, like, I actually, okay, so I run like a creative writing group in Toronto that's focused on like people who have experience of lived mental health and addiction issues. So we did like a Black identified writers group for Black History Month,
Nice.
and we were talking about balancing stories of Black joy versus stories that have to do with the Black experience that can potentially be traumatizing for Black people to relive.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I got some different perspectives from people kind of talking about the fact that, like, yeah, like it's we're really happy the stories are out there, and we have to kind of like maybe curate the times when we're ready to ingest that type of that media. So, do you have any like thoughts on that? Like, how do you kind of like figure out, okay, am I feeling like I want to like watch something that might be kind of I don't know, informative, educational, rather than like something that's purely fluff and just for you.
Yeah, I think it depends on like where I am in my life, right? Because right now we're still in a pandemic, and I just you during this pandemic you have so much time to really think about everything because a lot of the time you're spending it by yourself. And so the biggest thing for me when it came to the hate you give and like giving myself time to read a book like Angie's is I had to take baby steps. So I knew that I'd have to read Thug. It's a staple book. It's like Angie Thomas is a great, she's a great one for me. So I respect her work. So I was thinking, okay, who else is an amazing writer in this realm? Justin Reynolds. Justin? Justin.
Yeah,
Jason? Oh my gosh, there's two Reynolds.
there's actually
Um,
like, yeah, but I think it's Jason.
yes, I'm gonna like kick myself later for this, but so a long way down, I listened to the audio book of that, and that just oh, hold on, everything, my heartstrings. I love that book. I want to buy the hardcover of it because the audio was phenomenal. He does it all himself, and it's amazing. I could probably listen to it again because it was just that good. I probably will listen to it again because it was that good. And his story, the main character in that story has to make this big decision. And it reminded me of a lot of traditions that like I've seen in my own family and the men in my family, reminding me of my story in some ways and like where I grew up. I grew up in the inner city of Kansas City, and I didn't know that I lived in the inner city until like a teacher told me that, and I was like, "What?" That's not true. Like, I love my neighborhood. I don't know what that means. Like, why are you saying these things to me? But so I started with that book, and then The Hate You Give. Just I was like, okay, I'm gonna start it again. I'm gonna start from the beginning. I'll start it on my Kindle. So I did that, and honestly, I've been enjoying the story. I'm reading it as we speak. And I've been enjoying the story so far. I love it. I love Star's voice in the story. It's so real. And I am bracing myself for what's about to happen. And I just feel like at this point, I can't be afraid to relive some experiences. It's just gonna happen. But I also want to be able to open space so that I can give myself an opportunity to be able to receive the story that Angie's telling. So yeah, it's a balance. Like I just finished Before This Legend Born by Tracy Dion, which was absolutely amazing. And so I was like, okay, I'm ready for this Angie Thomas book. Let's do it. I had my fantasy. Let's go into contemporary.
I'm so excited. Like, people keep saying it's the best book I've ever read. I'm like, really? Let me check it out.
Amazing. It's so good. I bought the audio version of the book, and now I have the hardcover because I just needed both physical. I needed a physical copy of that book so I could see what it was that like I was listening to the whole time.
That's amazing. I'm super excited for that. And yeah, thank you for your like candor on that, because yeah, it's really hard to like when you are coming from like a background that's inner city to be okay with talking about stuff like that. Like it's still like a big trigger for me, honestly. like I live in the most multicultural city in Canada, Toronto. But I grew up in an area that was like very weird. It was like I went to a very rich school, but I lived slightly adjacent to that. And the rich kids never let me forget ever about that. It was really like it was a lot. They were just like thinking about things about like money that I was just like I never thought about because I don't know, like the way I was raised with my family was just like this doesn't really matter, but like they were really trying to get me to think it did. Um, so it was just like something that it was hard to kind of like go back to like seeing those type of stories and like the stories of like the way that violence in inner cities is portrayed by people who aren't in those situations is the most disgusting rhetoric I've ever heard. It's really bad. So just trying to like navigate that and like go back into that type of story and how it's framed is really interesting to me. I was just wondering, have you read one of the good ones?
I have not, but it looks amazing. I've read the blurb to the story, and it sounds like it might make me cry. Have you read it?
No, I'm not ready to read it like at this moment, but I'm really excited to read it.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a buy for sure.
Yeah, because yeah, I'm just the sisters, the Moulette sisters. I think it's so cool the way they're able to write together. Like I actually have a sister who writes YA fiction, but I can't imagine writing an entire book with her. So, but like it's kind of amazing. Like they were like on Seth Meyers, and like I was just like super impressed, and like they're doing these readings where like they would like read like they were doing a poetry reading where they would like read one sentence, the next one would read the next sentence. Like, you guys are like twins or something. So crazy. But
I remember seeing an interview with them, and like the way they write is that one of the sisters is a morning person and the other is like an evening person. And so like one will start, I guess, like maybe start their chapter, and then the other one will like pick up in the evening. And that's amazing because yeah, I couldn't imagine doing that.
Like I will send my sister my chapters and I'm just like, what's going on in your head? I don't understand what this comment is here. Oh my god. Okay. We should probably get back on track. I did want to ask you, like, so when did you first become aware of like the avenue of traditional publishing and like what that entailed, and when did you start pursuing it?
Yeah, so right when I started writing a book when I was 16, I knew for sure that like I wanted my book to be in stores. I knew about self-publishing, but I was just so like I think enamored by traditional publishing and how it worked. And so the thing with me is once I want to learn something about a new product or a new process, like I just dive in and I just like consume all this information. So after I finished writing my book, or halfway through writing my book, I just started learning about what it takes to get a literary agent, what is a literary agent, that you need a query letter, like what the heck is that? And then how do you write a query letter? Also, how do you find these people that you need to query to get a literary agent? And so I joined this community at the time. It was called Agent Query Connect. And I don't think it's around anymore because I tried looking for it. But basically, it was an online forum, and it was a space that had different areas that help you like on this process, on this journey. So I joined the forum, and then I started writing a query and I put it on the forum, and I just let people rip it to shreds. It was like terrifying, but also really, really helpful. It was the first time that I experienced like critique feedback, because I didn't know what a critique partner was when I was writing my book. And so I didn't even have anyone else like read that story. I just was like, read my query. Let's focus on this part first because I want to get a literary agent. So I started doing that. And then I back in that time, so I think it was like 2011 when I started querying. There were still some agents that were only doing like mail. So I remember querying Jody Reamer, I know, who is Stephanie Meyer's literary agent. Of course, I was going to query her. So I like printed out my book. I like printed out my query letter. I had this really fancy like stationery and envelope, and I sent it all the way to New York. And I had to wait 3 months before I heard from her. And when I started querying, it was right before I entered college for my first book. So I remember getting the rejection letter at university and just being like, oh, dang. I thought I was gonna get this. I thought it was gonna be good, but at the same time, I had done some email queries too, and those were all rejections. So I honestly, I learned everything about traditional publishing through Agent Query Connect, and then through reading a lot of blogs, and following people's stories. Like I remember Veronica Roth, she had a blog on Blogger originally, and so I followed her, and I just like drank up her entire story because she was also writing in college, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's me. Like I want to be doing the same thing she's doing. And then Young Adult Rambles is a really big blog, I think, still, and the author of that blog interviews literary agents and what they're looking for. And so yeah, and then it wasn't until probably 2017 when Alexa Dunn created her YouTube channel. And so then once she had a YouTube channel, that's like all I watched. I just devoured all of her stuff.
That's amazing. Yeah. It's so cool, like hearing that journey, because like I haven't actually talked to that many people who literally were like sending out queries by mail. Like that's really cool. And it's, yeah, I just think that's kind of like an awesome story for you to tell. And like, yeah, it's just like we're so used to like everything being so instant. And for me personally, like I had been writing stories like, first grade is like I can pick up this crayon, I'm gonna write a story, draw a little picture next to it. There was like this TV show that was like Sherlock Holmes, but like his daughter is called like Shirley Holmes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, do you actually? I thought that was a Canadian show no one's seen.
Oh, never mind, I lied. I thought we were talking about the movie Sherlock Holmes' sister.
No, I'm talking about a tiny little Canadian show that no one has ever seen when I was like 7. So I was like writing fan fiction about this like mystery, like Sherlock Holmes thing, and giving it to my like first grade teacher, and she was like, "Oh, this looks good. Let's see what else," because like I don't know what other stuff she was getting from like my classmates, but I don't think it was interesting fan fiction with illustrations. But I just expanded from there. I don't know if you've heard of Animorphs, but I was very into that because there was like a prominent Black character named Cassie, and she was on the cover of the books, and it was really inspiring for me. So I don't know. Have you heard of Animorphs or no?
No, like I'm like thinking, what the heck? Why haven't I heard of this book or this story? Why couldn't I get it when I was younger? Was it like early 2000s when it came out?
It was 90s stuff, like late 90s. And there's actually a TV show. Again, a Canadian TV show. It's literally it's like a sci-fi thing actually. So it's like some type of like galactic battle where like these 13-year-olds discover like a dying alien who's like trying to help them save the world from this like these evil aliens that are basically like, Stephanie Meyer's the host. She basically based it on Animorphs.
Oh, your face.
Because it's like these little things that go into your brain and they're aliens, and then they take over your mind like the host.
Look this story up. I'm so behind on these stories. Like, that sounds amazing. It also was giving me like alien vibes, science fiction, fantasy, like Alicia.
Yeah.
Dow's. Is it Alicia or I think it's Alicia? Dow's.
The Sound of Stars.
Yeah. So that's amazing. What the heck?
Yeah, it's like people clowned on those books hard because the covers, it was like these scholastic paperbacks, and like they had like this 2D printing of the characters' powers they got from this alien were to turn into animals, any animal they wanted. Weird, right? Yeah, very random. And so they would have like these 6 images of a human being slowly turning into any animal. And it was frightening. It was just a lot. Yeah, so most people see that and they're just like, get me away from it. The story was actually really good. Like it was very like a life and death situation of just like only these like six teens know about this alien invasion and they have to save the world. Some of the characters, their family has been infested by like the you know, the host type of thing, like from Stephanie. You've read The Host, right?
I have not read The Host. Like I
You ever read The
started
Host?
it and I was like, because I wanted to. I was just so stuck on Twilight at the moment. It was the biggest thing in my teenage life, and when The Host came out, I was like, it's not going to be the same.
I mean, it wasn't. I literally like, okay, so I have two older sisters. When that book came out, we literally bought the book and then took turns reading chapters to each other because we have problems. Yeah,
I love that. That sounds so inspirational. If I could convince my sister to read to me, that would be something.
it was so funny. But like, yeah, for this like Animorph story, like they had like a one series of like a tiny Canadian television show and like it was interesting. But like the black girl of the story, like unfortunately it was not written by a black woman. It was written by a white woman. Her name is Catherine Applegate. And yeah, but the way she portrayed Cassie in the story, like she was just like an animal lover. Her parents owned like a animal rehab clinic, and she was just really a caring person. And she had like a ton of character development because the fact that like they're fighting aliens, but she also has lots of sympathy for like this alien race, even though it was kind of like very similar to The Host, where like Wanda's like sympathetic of like the we haven't read The Host, but it's kind of like an interesting thing. But and there were like 56 volumes of this book from like different varying perspectives of like diverse ethnicities, and I was just kind of like happy. I'm just like the first representation I saw of a black girl was just like she was just a normal girl. It wasn't like any weird I don't know, stereotyped version of a black girl. Even though it would have been great if it was written by a black woman, obviously, but it was still interesting. So sorry, I just got on that tangent about animals.
I'm learning so much stuff. Like my TBR is never ending, and hearing about the stories and also what like shaped you when you were like reading things growing up is really important. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, of course. So I don't know, like I didn't see that many stories about like girls growing up who like looked like me, but like when I finally saw something other than that, it was I think it was basically around the time that you described because I saw Amanda and Hunger. I was Hunger Games obsessed as well. So then I saw Amanda and that, and then everything, and other stuff.
Oh my gosh, I know.
But yeah, it was interesting. But I did want to talk a little bit more about your querying journey because um, yeah, it's really something that like right now I'm just kind of more learning about because when I was in high school, I was like, I was obsessed with X-Men too. I was really into X-Men, and so I wrote like this X-Men inspired story when I was 16. It's like this epic fantasy type of thing where like there was this ancient race of like mutants who were like hiding, and then there was different factions who want to like help the humans and like kill the humans. And I would like send it around to all my friends, and like it was kind of like, it was ridiculous. Like I'd be like, "Hey, here's a new chapter. Read it now." I was very into it, and that was the only way I was really thinking about sharing my story. I'm just like, read this. I want your immediate feedback. I will watch you read it like a freak. Yeah.
Loved it though. It's not like I mean X-Men is amazing. Those stories are incredible, and so the fact that you're writing fan fiction, yes, absolutely.
It was nice. It was like a carefree time where I knew nothing about the publishing industry. I was just like, let me just post this on like fanfiction.net and some of my friends will reply to it. And that was basically it. Or like fiction press, because there's like fanfiction.net and then there's fiction press. This was an original story. It wasn't like an X-Men fanfic. But anyways, I yeah, that so I wasn't thinking about publishing at all. I think there's like a Delacorte contest that I entered when I was like 18. And I sent my my X-Men inspired story along over there, and literally no one won the contest that year. I was like, damn, they just don't award it to anyone if they don't like.
Listen, no one wins. What are their standards? What's going on? That's awful.
But I didn't know about querying until like I started like listening to like podcasts like 88 Cups of Tea. Like I was like a huge fan of that when I discovered it. And Sarah Ennie's First Draft. I actually like heard about it when I like was at a Veronica Ross signing, and then she was like there and like promoting it, and I was like, you're so nice and awesome.
That's amazing. I love that.
So yeah, like I was kind of just like very green on querying, and I was kind of just like, I guess I just have to. Yeah, so I like had my like my little fantasy sci-fi X-Men thing, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I literally never wrote an outline. I pantsed a book and a half, and literally was just getting feedback from my friends and family immediately. Like I don't know how that even happened that I got that far into the story, but obviously I just kind of like dried out. I was like, I don't know what is happening next. Like my main characters got together. I'm just like, I don't know what else happens after.
It was the beginning of something magical that your painting brain created, and now you're like, okay, gosh, where do I go from here?
There was no, when I say there was no planning, it was kind of just like, okay, I'm just gonna think right now about the chapter, write it, and like I didn't even write like a slight outline, which is like unfathomable to me.
Isn't that so fun? Like being able to like get excited about this single chapter and then just writing that single chapter. That's amazing.
It was so like such a carefree time because I was just kind of like, whatever, like this is how people write.
Yes, that's what I thought too.
It's so ridiculous. Like now thinking back, because now I'm just like all like worried about like outlines. I'm just like, okay, I need to have this really detailed outline because after I finished writing that like X-Men inspired thing, I wrote a contemporary like in my first year of university, and I was like, I literally wrote like I don't know like 100,000 words of it without planning with 3 different point of views. So didn't work out. It was horrific. Like it was just I just sent it along to my sister, like my old book, and she was like, "Sounds good." And I'm like, and then looking back on it now, I'm just like, "What was that?" Like I don't even know. So I actually took all of those ideas and those characters and made it into the book I'm querying now. Yeah.
Happy querying. How's it going?
It's actually going okay. Like,
that's good.
Do you think I should share some of the stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like I won't go into detail or anything, but yeah, I've gotten some interest. I currently am working on like a couple R&Rs. Yeah.
That means that they like your story and that they like your concept and that they see a lot of potential. That's amazing.
I'm still in shock because yeah, I'm the type of person where I'm very like shoot my shot. So when I first got into query, I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna like send out my queries. I'm really excited about this. I was really excited to query a lot of like agents of color, and I was on Query Tracker all the time. I was listening to all the podcasts and stuff. And then I was kind of like, okay, this is different than I thought it would be. Like I started pitching like last September, right after I finished the current like incarnation of the book that I'm querying now, and I thought it was ready. Like I had one of my friends, so I'm friends with Louisa Onome.
Came out like home.
Yes, yeah. So I actually got some like government grants, and I through that was able to employ her as like my writing manuscript assessor, and she like looked through all my drafts before I started querying, and she's like, okay, go query. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. Oh my god, so nervous. So I just started it around Pit Mad, and I got a little bit of interest. So I was like super excited, and then I think I got a little bit spoiled because the first person I queried requested my full overnight, and then I was like, yeah, it's crazy. I was like, what the hell is happening? I was like, oh, maybe I'm going to be one of those success stories. It's going to happen super fast, but no, did not. And so I was like slowly just like, oh, okay, no, it's not happening like that. But yeah. But I'm still like in the running for that. I don't know what's going on. But it was kind of just like me, like, okay, I'm gonna do some pitch contests, I'm gonna do some cold querying, see how that feels, and slowly getting the hang of it. But like, do you want to share a little bit about like when you were getting a little bit closer to like, okay, I'm getting some requests now, I'm getting some R&Rs, like how did that process go? Because I'm always really interested to hear, because it's complicated to figure out who you're gonna like, choose finally. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nerve-wracking. So I didn't actually get any like great feedback from literary agents until I was looking for my second literary. And I was querying a time travel book, which I hear that you're not supposed to like write for time travel, but I decided to do it anyway. So I was querying a time travel book, and it was the best querying experience I'd ever had ever. So I was having multiple people like you responding overnight, requesting the full or requesting the partial. And I felt really, really, really confident about the story. And I just thought like for sure, like I was going to get a literary agent. And so I don't know, maybe I sent too many queries out. I probably sent about 60 to 70 queries out with that book. And I probably had maybe close to 20 requests, and none of them panned out. So by the end of it, I was getting feedback, just saying a lot of it was just plot. Like it was like, this is such a great story, but I wanted to see more of this. Or I really love these characters, but it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Or maybe there wasn't a connection with the voice. I had a lot of people say they couldn't connect to the voice after a while, or that they thought it was an important story, but they didn't really know what to do with it. And so I didn't feel as down as I thought I was going to, because I wanted to immediately start on another book. So I started writing this zombie book, which is the one that got me my current literary agent, Caitlin. And when I was querying this book, it was right after the pandemic had just started, so I was stuck at home. But the first round of queries I sent out was pretty good. Like I got two full requests overnight. And then the next day I got 2 rejections from both of those separate people, which is just insane. I don't know.
It's like, oh, geez.
Yeah, and it was just a auto reject too. So there was no way to really know, like, is there something looking for?
Wait, your full, it was auto rejects?
It was auto, yeah.
Oh.
I was so confused. I was like, okay, they liked it, but they hated it? Question mark.
Well, I hear like, yeah, a lot of agents will like request fulls and then like not actually read the full if they're like, okay, no.
So. Yeah, they'll get like halfway. So I was for sure thinking like it's definitely something with the first half of my book, because yeah. So then at the same time, I was working really intensely with my critique partner, and she felt confident about it. I felt pretty confident about it. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna try again. I sent a few more queries out. I got another full request. And that I got a response a week later, and it was also a rejection. And it just again, like, didn't really have a place for the story. So I was feeling a little let down because it was pandemic season. We didn't know what COVID really was yet and how it was going to affect people. But then in the summertime, so I think it was maybe June. I've been sending queries out up till then. I sent out maybe a few more partials. I didn't really hear back from anyone. Then I did a pitch contest. So I participated in DV Pit, which is where I found my first agent. So I participated in that, and my pitch just like blew up immediately, and I was freaking out the whole day. And I ended up getting a lot of likes from agents, and editors at the time were opening their doors for Black creators. And at the same time, some agents who had seen my pitch blowing up had like responded to my query. I don't know how they figured that it was the same story, but they were like, hey, I meant to respond to this. Can you please send me your full? Like, I'm super interested.
I've heard of that happening. Yeah, people, I think agents kind of like forget in this, like, let's see what's popular. Oh, they send it? Okay.
Okay. I think it's probably a cross check to it that like, oh, that sounds amazing. Wait, do I have that in my inbox right now? So yeah, and I ended up signing with my agent like pretty much 2 weeks after DP Pit, but I did get some people who requested who wanted to make an offer, and then I got a group of people who said that it would have been an R&R for them. And obviously I didn't get a chance to talk to them about what their revisions like would be in depth. They gave me very surface level, like, if you hadn't had an offer, I'd love to extend an R&R for you. I have this kind of vision. And then it was kind of like, the best of luck. I'll be rooting for you. So that's how my querying / agent experience went. It definitely was a whirlwind.
That sounds amazing. Like, it's so exciting when you're like doing pitch contests and then you get some attention and people are telling you like, this sounds good. And you're like, really? Like, what the heck? Like, it's so interesting to have that experience. Like,
Yeah.
did you feel like extra motivated? Did you feel like, oh wow, like people actually care about the story?
I felt mixed feelings because I had gotten so many rejections. I had gotten those holds, I got rejections. So when my pitch was blowing up, I was like, well, maybe my pitch is just sexier than my story. That happens where people like what you're saying, but then they start reading it and there's some issues. And so since there were so many doors that were opening during this time, because it was also like there were a lot of protests happening in my city in particular too, that a lot of agents were like, we'll extend extra to Black creators. So I had set up a few meetings with literary agents that I was hoping to just talk to them to see why they had rejected the story, to see where they were coming from, to see if I could use that information to just make revisions on my own. But it just never got to that point. So yeah, whenever I was sending my story out again, I honestly thought that like maybe they wouldn't love the story ultimately because of, I don't know, XYZ. But then when they were saying that they liked it and multiple agents were offering, I was like, are you sure? Like, okay, this is great. And on the phone, when an agent is offering for you, like they tell you why they love your story. And so it was just so overwhelming because I was like, this has never happened before. No one's ever been like, I love your story and this is why, and I want to represent you. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so much. But it was such an exciting time for it to be such a trying time at the same time. So yeah,
that sounds like a whirlwind, like just because of the fact that like, yeah, like when you have you said you cleared like around 60 times and you had like 20 requests that didn't go through, and like I can't imagine, like that just sounds like a lot to deal with. And like being able to kind of be objective about rejection and kind of just take the feedback that you do receive when it's not a form rejection, and it's hard to do. And it's but for me it was kind of like a weird thing where I'm just like, I thought it was query ready. I'm just like, wait, but I'm getting all this feedback. Was I query ready? And then trying to figure out, I'm just like, oh my god, do I need to stop querying for a minute and take a step back? It's hard to kind of like navigate that, because it's like as much research as you can do, as much like craft books as you can read, it's sometimes you're just like have these, I don't know, for me I have like these blind spots where I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize that was an issue I needed to work on. So did you feel like you had the experience like that? Like how did it go with your like kind of like once you got those rejections and you got like some of that feedback, how did you go about like implementing that into your craft?
Honestly, when I started getting rejections for the prior story that I was querying, I knew that the one thing I needed to work on was plot. Because I'm a pantser, I don't really plan. I have tried planning before, and like I've tried outlining before, and even though like that was kind of successful, I just wasn't like the happiest doing it. But I really wanted to still like, I wanted to understand like what it was to have a good plot, what it was to have character arcs and story arcs, and having a story that like rises and falls. So I started reading the Save the Cat beat sheet, and I started reading it. Then I started watching a bunch of videos on YouTube about how to implement that in your story, and then examples with where that's seen in other big books. And that was so helpful for me. I think that's where like it was revolutionary, I guess, in my experience, because when I started querying, I wasn't getting my rejections on my most recent book wasn't like, oh, it's a plot issue. It was like, I love the story. I'm just not sure what to do with it. And I felt better about that. And so once I saw those rejections coming in for the Undead Truth of Us, I was thinking, okay, so it sounds like it's more of a taste thing. So I had no like real way to implement changes because, you know, reading books, stories, art, it's all subjective. So the fact that someone was rejecting me based on their personal taste and then someone else was accepting it because they also liked it was just, it was a coin toss. And I feel like that was similar whenever we were on submission as well. It's just a toss. It's like, oh, I love this story, or it's like, this is not the story that I want to work on. Yeah.
Awesome. I did want to talk to you a little bit about submission. If you do have the time, how much more time do you have?
I have about like 10 more minutes.
Okay, that's great. I really appreciate that. Sorry, we've gone over, but I thank you so much. This is like,
of course,
just really invaluable stuff for me. So yeah, so maybe you can just share like what was the thing that put you over to it's like, okay, I'm going to choose this agent. Like what questions that you asked and just like, okay, yeah, this is what really has set me on the path to believing that this person is going to be my advocate. And yeah, what was the submission process like in terms of like revisions and then submitting to editors at different publishers?
oh my goodness. So my agent, I guess we'll start there. Caitlin is amazing. She's with Jill Grinberg Literary Agency. It's a small like boutique agency in New York. And so it was okay. So to begin the story, I had queered Caitlin, and when I saw her agent profile, like I was very like wide-eyed and dreamy. And I want to say I didn't have any dream agents, but I secretly had some dream agents, and she was definitely on my list because I felt like the stories that she read, the way that she described herself in her bio and what she was interested in, like it all lined up to like what I was also telling. And so I felt this distant connection with her already. Now, Caitlin doesn't accept very many new clients. And so I had also read that the agency itself, like there was a longer wait time. So I submitted my query to her, but I didn't know if I'd actually hear back from her. And so she was one of the agents that was like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Like I wanted to reach out to you sooner, but like I saw your pitch and I have your like query and I'd love to read the rest of it. Like she'd already had the first 25 pages. Caitlin read my book overnight and she immediately was like, I would love to set a phone call with you. Like, I love this story. And I died. But on the other end of that, I had a few other agents who were really great agents who were offering. And when I was like narrowing down my options, it came down to 3 different agents. They were all like great agencies. They all had a decent list. One was a little bit newer. The other 2 were pretty established, had very similar sales on Publishers Marketplace. And so I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? I ended up talking to both of them a couple of times, I think. I ended up narrowing it down to 2 agents. And the reason why I went with Caitlin is because, well, 1, I already had this connection with her. 2, she is the sweetest person I've ever met. She was already amazing when it came to communication, and that was one of the biggest things I wanted in a literary agent. I just wanted someone who's going to communicate to me, who's going to tell me what our plan was, who had connections in the industry, who knew editors, and had like a plan for this book, but also had a plan for my career as an author. That was important for me. And she was like, I want to be your agent that represents whatever you write, not just a story, but whatever it is that you want to do moving forward. And so I spoke to all of the clients that were offered to me from Caitlin and then from the other agent that was also offering that I was trying to figure out if I was going to go with that agency as well. And again, Caitlin's clients, they just really came through. Jessie Sequinto, I think is how you say her last name. She has a book called Dial A for Aunties. It's an adult story. She's amazing. She's so great to talk to. And she just had The Obsession come out, which is her young adult thriller. And she was a really big, really big help. But then Caitlin's head boss, so Jill, reached out to me, and I was floored that she wanted to speak with me as well. And she just was saying that, Caitlin really loves your story. It's all she's been talking about. And she doesn't take on clients very often, but like she really, really, really wants to work with you. And I knew they were just like shining my shoes for me, to give me that extra step. But I reached out to Caitlin asking her some more questions, especially about Publishing Paid Me, which was trending on Twitter.
Yep.
And Black stories being used in ways that were just a marketing tactic and not because they actually wanted to hear the story. There was a lot that I had anxiety about when it came to producing the story because it's not a Black issued book, but it is a Black story, and I didn't want it to be put it into the wrong hands of editors who just wanted to buy it as a quick buy and not actually be invested in the story. So Caitlin responded, and she just had the best response I've ever seen. Like she had like a paragraphs upon paragraphs upon paragraphs of like her plan for me, who she wanted to submit to, about Publishing Paid Me, about like what her plan was as far as like representing me as her client and being a Black person. I just felt confident after that, and I knew that she was going to be the agent I was going to go with because of her willingness to continue to learn, especially about Black culture and what it is to be a white client and having this privilege in the industry, but also knowing that she is going to be my advocate as well. And so I knew I could trust her, and that was really big for me. So yeah, so that's how I got Caitlin. I love her. I don't know if she's accepting submissions. She might be. She's amazing. Try to query her. So then when it came to submitting our book, I guess my book, we pretty much edited overnight. We did a few different rounds of edits together, and we did that in about 2 weeks. And we both just had like this powerhouse energy, like we're gonna go for submissions immediately. We want to do this. And then actually late June, we started our submission process. So she sent out a really big group. Is that what I want to say? Group. The first round of submissions was a really big round. So there was about 20 editors in this one. And she told me our goal was that we were going to sell in the first round. That was the goal. We wanted to sell in the first round. And she also was like, I'm going to send your story to every single person in this round too, because if they want to read, I want them to be able to have a chance to read immediately. And so she had tactics as far as following up with them and being on their butts. And she CC'd me in on everything. So she's a powerhouse woman. She's amazing. If you see her sales, she's phenomenal. But then she's so sweet. But then when she needs to be like, aggressive, she pulls out her mama claws. And I also love that too, because I don't know how to do that yet efficiently. So I'm glad she's my agent. So on the submission process, we had a decent amount of like big four publishers that were reading the story. And then we had a few reputable, like smaller publishers that were reading the story. And it came down to a smaller reputable publisher who was really, really, really interested. And they have some great books on shelves and in Target, like a great, great smaller house. And then we had a major house, not a top 5, but a major one. And I was really thrilled to just have 2 offers. But of course, I went with Disney. It's Disney, it's universally loved, and they have all these great stories. And I was even more excited because the head publisher at the time, Emily Meehan, had also bought Danielle Clayton's books, The Bells.
Amazing.
So I was fangirling because I was like, oh my gosh, this not only has this editor worked with other Black authors, which is really important for me, but also like they put out great books, and they have books that are all over the place. They're in Target, they're in schools, they're in Barnes and Noble. And so they offered, and I accepted the offer, and Caitlin was like, okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make that offer better now. And so she negotiated like the boss that she is, and we got a pretty good deal. So I'm excited. Disney has been a dream to work with. My editors have been absolutely amazing. And right now we are still editing my book, The Undead Truth of Us. So we just finished our second round of big developmental edits. And next week I'll be getting a line edit. So yeah.
That's so exciting. I'm like, honestly, I am so excited to read your book. And yeah, I know that you're a dancer, and like we kind of have that connection with our books. So I'm just like really, really looking forward to it. And like honestly, yeah, I know you have to get going, but like this has been amazing today. Like I learned a lot, and it was just really nice connecting with you. And I really appreciate like all that you're doing in terms of just like helping other writers out there, and just, giving your advice and being like the bright light that you are. So thank you again.
Thank you. You're so kind. Thanks for reaching out. When I saw you in my DMs, I was like, yes, because I definitely want to support you too. And if you ever have any questions or you need anything, like my DMs are always open. You have my email now, so just email me. Because I understand that getting an agent, like, and getting a publishing deal, like, it's a hard and long and sometimes scary process. And there's a lot that I didn't know that I wish I knew going into the process. So yeah, thanks for taking the time to interview me. And I loved hearing about your story, and we should do this again soon.
Thank you. Again, yeah, this has been amazing. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks again, Brittany. Bye. Bye.